Hello and welcome to Behind the Games, delivered in Glasgow 2026, the podcast, where we're exploring all the behind-the-scenes successes and the challenges in the lead-up and now the aftermath to one of the world's largest and grandest sporting events. With the eyes of the world that we're on Glasgow in 2026, we're getting to know some of the key players and what it takes to put on one of the greatest shows of global proportions. Today's episode, well, it's the finale, and it looks at what happens next. It's the morning after, the night before, the games have come to a close, and we're talking to two of the key players at the helm of what was Glasgow 2026. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined once again by James Bulley of Trivandi and Phil Batty of Glasgow 2026. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me, and I think I need to say, congratulations, you did it. It's happened. How do you feel, Phil?
Oh, it's just a phenomenal feeling to wake up this morning, to see the whole hydro full with just 3,000 athletes having the time of their lives, celebrating just some amazing sporting achievements over 11 days, and to know that Glasgow knocked it out of the park and just delivered a phenomenal games. Yeah, feeling tired, but very, very proud.
Yeah, no wonder. I mean, it was an incredible celebration to end what has been an amazing 11 days. And James, you must be feeling pretty good as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just tired, exhausted, but elated, happy, excited. I mean, it was such an amazing event. The whole 11 days, just end to end, was just full of excitement and fantastic moments. So, yeah, it's a very special memory.
It must feel like a bit of a blur. I mean, I was lucky enough to be part of it. I was working in the weightlifting. I was working with the team at Longines and Longines House. I went to see Scotland House. I went to see some of the netball. I watched some of the boxing. I mean, it was constant. It was full on. It was absolutely packed with energy. Did either of you get any sleep at any point?
I think there's just so much more than like the sport. Like the sport was packed, 215 gold medals over the 11 days. And, the arenas did feel wonderful. But yeah, as you said, there was kind of trade conversations going on, there was tourism events, there was amazing like journalist hosting happening in the city, and then there was the festival, so you just felt the party vibes all at the same time. So yeah, it was kind of 11 days, but 11 very long, full, fun days.
So no sleep for you. That's the answer there. What about you, James?
Oh, look, it was just one of those moments you want to live the moment. So you don't want to be spending too much time hidden away. But it was fantastic to be out and around the venues, seeing everything that was happening in the city. There's so much vibe in that city. And of course, we were recording it with our artist in resident, Ben Mosley, who was painting the games as well. So we were following him around, seeing him capture those moments in live painting as well.
That's incredible. That's kind of something you wouldn't even consider. There are so many elements that I think even if you were invested in fully enjoying the games, you couldn't see it all. You couldn't possibly do it all because there was just so much going on. Like an artist painting it live, that's incredible.
Yes, he was capturing some really fantastic moments. One of the best paintings he did 6 paintings for me, was that 100-metre moment where he captured the 200-metre finalists, the men's and the women's finalists in gold. He paints in gold leaf. It looked absolutely stunning. So yes, he's got a great record of those amazing moments through the Glasgow Games, some of which of those paintings have been donated to the city of Glasgow as well. So we'll look to have them as a memory of the Games after.
That is really special. I mean, for both of you, I know it's very, very hard to choose, and I'm going to do it anyway. Do you have a highlight? Was there a standout moment for you when you thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening?
Oh, I think it's a really mean question.
I know, I'm sorry. There was a lot of good moments.
There was a lot of good moments. There was a lot of great moments. I think probably a personal highlight for me was during like day 5 of the games. I was walking down the SEC concourse, one of our venues, and a volunteer just came up to me and gave me the biggest hug and just said thank you. And it was one of those days where you're halfway through, you need the energy boost, and I don't think she will ever realise how important that was to my games experience. So, that's probably one of 1,000 highlights we had over the course of the games.
That's so special. That is really nice. Again, it's just that energy, that sort of beautiful moment that you don't quite expect. What about yourself, James?
I think one of the most special moments I'll always remember for the rest of my life was we had the opportunity to present the medal for the 800-metre men's final. So we were downstairs in Scotstoun Stadium, in the changing room, in the Warriors changing room, in the warm-up areas. All the athletes were there. The vibe in that space was incredible. The Nigerian athletes were all singing. The 100-metre relay had just happened, so all of those teams were down there. and our 800-metre finalists were there waiting to receive their medals. They were so excited and so happy. That whole energy was incredible, and I was in amongst all of that. That was very exciting.
Yeah, I think obviously you're both very hot on the logistics, but I think what you can tell from what you've just said is that it's actually about the feeling that the game created. It's about the emotion, it's about the excitement, it's about the joy, it's about those kind of moments. Is that a fair sort of assessment?
And I think you have the whole Commonwealth
Yeah.
at home in the city. Like there is just a warmth and a humour and a camaraderie that comes about when you get everybody together. It's like bringing the band back together every 4 years. And I think that is infectious, that positivity, that joy, it spreads through a city. And I think over the course of the 11 days, you saw shoulders lift up, you saw smiles on people's faces, you saw people take nations to their heart. I mean, for me, there were some moments in the netball where you could really feel that the entire audience was probably Scottish, but they were backing either Jamaica or Australia, and it was loud. So I think that's what sport does. That's what multi-sport does. Is it gives you the opportunity to cheer on the home crowd, and Team Scotland did a fantastic job with these games, but it also allows you to kind of get behind any one of those 73 other nations and territories.
Yeah, it was quite special. You do kind of almost get behind somebody you didn't expect. I was in the weightlifting, a sport that I've not known much about, and I was like, I'm so invested. I was like, go on, Ollie. I was like, I don't even know Ollie. I have no idea. I've never seen him before now, but I really care that he lifts this weight. It was quite special. I mean, the emotions must have been high, but we do need to talk about logistics, James, because that was a big part of obviously what you and the Trivandi team were working on to make sure that it went as smoothly and we could enjoy these emotions, not just sort of looking at how it all works. Were you happy with how everything went? Because it was such a tight turnaround. We've spoken about it a lot and in depth about that kind of 18-month period where you normally have 4 years. Were you happy with how the logistics turned out?
When we get into the live environment and the games are going and there's so many things going on, whether it's transport or security or access issues or trying to get materials into venues, trying to make sure that everything is set and staged right and all the technology is working. There's so many moving parts. There's so many things to make happen. Look, we were dealing with lots of issues every single day. We had a command centre based in the operating company's headquarters there. Huge team of people from the organising company through Trivandi staff and so on, all together dealing with any issues that were coming up day to day. And they were just knocking those down every single day. There's no major incident, no major issue that wasn't really smoothly dealt with. So as a front of house spectator or one of the clients, whether you're an athlete or a member of the game's family, you probably wouldn't have noticed a lot of what was happening around you as people were scurrying around trying to make things work. But it all worked. It all came together, and everybody was, having a great time at the end.
It's like a duck on water. It looks serene. Everyone's having a lovely time, and underneath it's just paddling furiously. Yes. But in terms of that kind of all coming together, being an embedded partner and working so closely, and it was like one big team, as again we've mentioned before. Do you think that was key to solving those problems quite as efficiently as it seems to have happened?
I think that's absolutely key. I think the difference is with this model for an event delivery partner being embedded in the organising committee was so essential to us being able to understand what the operating systems were, the policies, the vision, the drive behind what we were trying to achieve, the objectives. By being part of that at the top table with the decision makers alongside Phil's team, enabled us to really understand how to deliver what we needed to do. So that's a different model, but it's a brave model to do because you're sitting in amongst the organising company, but you're actually then able to deliver much better and create the right value and impact that you're looking to achieve from the objectives you're trying to do.
Does it also increase the speed that you can work at? Because you don't have to then go and ask one person who then sends an email there and gets a phone call and you've got to go through a selection of chain. Like, you're already in that team. You're all working together. Does that make it more streamlined, I suppose? Being
part of the decision as well and helping make those decisions, it also enables us to move much quicker. And given the time frame, our team were brought on 400 days to go, not 2 years. So we have to really understand exactly what the mission, the intent, the values of everything that we need to think about in every decision. Being part of that team and in amongst those decisions helps us move much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of going forward, do you think that's a model, Phil, that you'd hope maybe other Commonwealth Games, other big sort of experiences like this maybe adopt, bringing in that sort of embedded partner and making things work a wee bit more streamlined? Because we've spoken a wee bit about that before.
Absolutely. I think what we've learned here is that the way you build a delivery ecosystem with an organizing company at the heart, but embedded partners that are helping you truly co-design, deliver, strategically set out the event, but also execute on the ground, it's not only more efficient, it's a lot more fun. You get to build real relationships with real people. You get to go into the competition together with the same shared vision and the same shared values. And I think what that results in is, on the ground, a higher quality of event, more problem solving at pace, and also genuinely the team spirit you need to get through 11 days of competitive sport.
Yeah, but it powers you through, which is nice to hear. And you said fun as well, and I'm all about the fun. I think something is hard work, but it should be fun, and it should be something positive as well. In terms of your side of challenges, Phil, like, again, it seems to have gone really well, which is amazing, but nothing is ever perfect. I mean, what kind of challenges did you encounter? And I'd imagine they were solved because I didn't hear about them, but were there anything that kind of sort of reared up and said, oh, we need to kind of get round this?
I think one of the challenges was making sure that each of the venues was delivered to 110%. So, we had a very short period of time to get into the venues as well. So 18 months to deliver the project, but we only really had days and a week to get into most of our venues. And many of them were still being used by the community whilst we were building the temporary infrastructure. So one of the challenges was, how do you incrementally improve that client experience on venue? And I was fortunate enough that I got to do about 4 walk rounds of the venues before they opened to the public, and every time we went round there were things you go, what about that? Why don't we change that? Could we adapt that? Because you can see it on a plan, but then when you see it in real life, it really, it has a colour to it that you can then experience and talk about. And what I found with the delivery team and partners such as Trivandi was, I'd go back 48 hours later and those little things had all been executed to perfection. So there was never a moment during the entire delivery of this games where individuals and teams weren't improving and incrementally enhancing the games. And that's why we got to such a great result by the closing.
Yeah, it's those extra percentages. I've spoken to a lot of athletes over the last 11 days, and it's about finding those wee percentages, those fractions, pushing, kind of finding that limit. And I suppose that's what this has been about. You go in there and you say, great, how do we make it better?
Entirely. And also, this was a games that just staging the games was the big goal.
Exactly.
we got well past just staging the games quite early on.
Done that.
Completely different resource profile. We've delivered this entire event for £600 million less than Birmingham was delivered in 2022.
That's incredible.
But that comes from innovation. What I hope we've demonstrated over the course of these 11 days is what you saw on camera and in venue was a world-class elite sporting event that stood shoulder to shoulder with any of the last 5 editions of the Commonwealth Games. It was just delivered in a smarter, more sustainable way. And, that's what's given us the power to be more financially responsible and take this event forward with the new format.
Yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes. It really does. In terms of, again, this is the base level that it has gone well and it has been a success. Is there anything you would have done differently now? I mean, obviously, it's literally hours after it's all finished, so maybe not sort of full debrief or processing done, but your kind of gut feeling, is there something that jumps out and said, if I could do it again, say in 4 weeks' time, which don't worry, you won't have to, I promise. I can see you both going, oh, I can't possibly. But if you had to do it, what would you do differently, James? Is there anything?
Well, look, I think I mentioned 400 days to go for Trivandi coming on board was tight. I mean, we've never delivered a mega event of this scale in this format in those sort of timescales. And so I'm not saying that it wasn't successful, but it was very stressful at times because you have to make decisions, you have to move on.
Yeah.
When Phil talks about walking around the venue 4 times, by the 5th time we figured out he was going to come around again, so we locked him out. So it's making sure you do make those decisions.
You're not welcome here anymore. Please stay away.
I had the key, don't you worry.
No more changes.
You knew the back door. But we did work really hard to continue to deliver it to a very, very high standard. And as Phil said, I think that's what it looked like on cameras and even actually in venue. You wouldn't have realised this was different, particularly to Birmingham or Gold Coast and so on before it. I think it was delivered to an exceptional standard given the budget constraints and the time constraints. But look, if we were to sit down and say, right, what are the lessons learned? We would say, look, you want at least 2 years for the delivery partners and the organising company to build up their teams, to build the shared knowledge and understanding of how we're going to do things, and just take a bit of the stress out of the system, really. You, of course, bring in the most experienced people from around the world, and that's what I think the key ingredient to this success and being able to do it in these timeframes was about bringing in that international expertise. But also what we want to do is be able to train up local people to do what we do, which we did successfully. Over half of the workforce were trained up from Scotland that were brought in from the Trivandi team. But, again, we can do more, we can do better if we have a little bit more time, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously timing is at the heart of that. Was anything else that you would particularly change?
Gosh, it's such a good question for the day after the.
I know,
after
and it's a hard one
closing.
to answer, I think, at that point. And it's also like your baby, you've been working on it. It's hard to sort of see it, but maybe after processing. But I'm putting you on the spot now, Phil. What do you reckon?
There is 1,000 things you'd do differently. I think even though there's 1,000 things you'd do differently, I don't believe it would have made it better. And I think that's what's important. These were these games for this moment in this city at this time. And therefore, I think you should live in the moment and love the work we've created. I think the thing that does stand out to me is, James talks about the kind of impact locally. Well, for me, a lot of that has been about investing in early career event practitioners. So what we've seen is young adults, young people, students who've come out of university or out of college or straight out of school, and this has been a first or a second job in the events industry. And what we've had the opportunity to do is, with the organising company, the Trivandi Academy, is show them what the best of the best looks like in the major events industry, because this is a thrilling job to have. This is a bucket list job where you get to do some things that most people think are completely impossible, and therefore you need time to grow that confidence. And what we've seen in some of the coordinators that have joined the team is just them shine. And there are individuals, far too many to name, that when they put on that uniform and they've taken on their games time role, they're almost unrecognisable from the human beings that came into the organisation a year ago, because they've grown and they are leaders now, and they were managing teams and coordinating volunteers and commanding roles in venues. And I think that investment in early career talent is a really important part of what the major event does.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Glasgow has proven itself once again as a great destination for events?
I mean, it is a mega event.
It does well,
do you know what I mean?
I'm a Glasgow girl, so I'm biased.
It didn't need to prove
obviously.
itself, but it has been punching well above its weight for decades. I think what it did was reassert the ambition of the city. So, I think a lot of events have always known you come to Glasgow, you get a great event. Yeah. If you want an innovative and ambitious event, that's why you now come to Glasgow, because this is a city that pioneers and leads the world. And I think that's quite exciting. It wasn't just the Commonwealth Games, UCI Cycling World Championships. So I'm a bit like, what's next for Glasgow? What are they going to create that will make this even bigger and better than before? Because there are far and few places in the world that can do things like this incredible city can.
I mean, you effectively work for the marketing of Glasgow now. That was incredible. I feel inspired and I live here. I mean, it's a friendly city though, and I think the volunteers that you've already mentioned, they were vital. And even you coming out the hydro, everyone's like, have a great night, and they've got their foam fingers and their megaphones, and that energy, I think, is something that's so important to harness. Is that important for you as well, James, when you come into something like that and you are bringing in workforce from the local area to get that energy? Absolutely.
Look, what was really interesting for me is that with a global mega event, as a Commonwealth Games is, this is usually a once in a generational thing. So every 25 years, you might get a mega event coming into a city. So Manchester had it in 2002, Birmingham had it recently, but Glasgow's had it twice in 12 years, which is a twice in a generational thing for Glasgow. But it means that when we were walking around these venues, we met so many volunteers, over 3,000 volunteers. So many of them had volunteered at 2014 for the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, for the UCI Track World Championships and so on. So there's a lot of not just muscle memories, there's a lot of just understanding of how these things should be presented. And I think that's what's quite interesting for me is when the Commonwealth Games came here, it was being presented as it was in 2014, because the face of the games are those people that you meet as you go into the venues, and they were just so sort of proud of being there to show off their city, show off their venue. I walked onto one venue at the velodrome, And the volunteer came up, immediately wanted to take a picture of me because I was just standing and looking at one of these photo frame things. So she wanted to put me in the photo frame. So I went with that. And then I noticed she had all these dangly things off her lanyard, and she'd made these pins. So she had made a cone and a piece of tartan with a unicorn on it. And she'd made 2,000 of them, and she was giving them away to everyone because I gave her my pin and she was giving me these dangly things. So I was walking around with a cone and a bit of tartan, and then I noticed loads of people walking around with cones and bits of tartan on their lanyard. It's those moments that make it really special. They really embrace and so proud to be part of their games in Glasgow and in Scotland.
I love that. So much effort and energy going into that. Just again, it's pure passion. It's pure joy of the experience, which is quite special. So obviously, with Glasgow obviously being a great city here, and I think it has managed, I'm just generalising it as a great city now, but it has been something that hosts well and welcomes the world, which is an amazing thing to see. The next stage of Commonwealth Games, 4 years from now, obviously India, Ahmedabad is going to be the host. What can they learn from these games? Again, we've kind of spoken about it, but is it something, do you think, they now have 4 years? They have a bit of time. They don't have that 18 months, that very tight time frame. Do you think it will be a bit more of a copy of what we've done here, Phil?
I don't think any edition of the Commonwealth Games should look and feel the same in the future. One of the questions that was asked of us almost all the way through this project was, you keep saying this is going to be different, but like, is different a good thing? Like, difference is diversity. Difference is kind of the celebration of all of our strengths and all of our unique character. So the fact that we will see over 2030 with Ahmedabad, the 2034 games, 2038, but also the youth games in Malta in 2027, I want every Commonwealth Games to be different, because actually every nation and territory of the Commonwealth is different. They're just united by sport. That's what brings all those nations and territories together. So actually, whether it's a twin nation hosting in Asia, whether it's a Pacific Island Games in Oceania, whether it's a multi-city games in Africa, they will take the spirit of Glasgow and they'll take all of the learnings, almost as you said, the behind the scenes, how do you put the event on? That's where the kind of continuation is from games to games. The format, that's for the host nation and host city to create. And that's where, an event like the Commonwealth Games that is unafraid to evolve is what's going to ensure that it is the event that remains relevant for the next 100 years. Yeah,
that ability to pivot and change and suit the city. What do you reckon, James? Do you think India, I mean, as I said, they've got the 4 years, so it takes the stress out of the time that you discussed. Do you think they will try and sort of follow some of this framework from Glasgow?
Yeah, I think with every mega event, you have to follow a framework. It's a tried and tested formula, model, whatever you want to call it. There's some very sort of important principles about how you deliver a mega event from an operational standpoint. I think what India is going to do, what we saw from the closing ceremony last night, they're going to bring this great vibrancy, their culture. They're going to bring, new energy and the sort of things we talked about with the volunteers and the interaction as you arrive at venues and so on. No question, they're going to bring a very special Indian flavour to the games. Of course, to enable you to be able to deliver that in a way in which Glasgow is being able to achieve and other recent games, you need that underlying international expertise as well to bring to India some of those important steps and processes and systems and so on that enable you to deliver this. Don't forget that games aren't just what it looks like and those brilliant people that welcome you and host you. There's so many multi-connected and interrelated tasks and schedules and things that you have to match up and bring together, all those technical things that you have to do. And it's those brilliant event people from around the world that bring that international capability and expertise to make sure it works.
Yeah, it's the stuff you don't see that makes it work, really. That's the important bit. Do you think in terms of, I suppose, the learning, or one of the big learnings has got to be the sustainability in terms of cost and also just making sure you use what you've got rather than going, we've got a games, let's build a stadium. Like, you don't need to be doing that. Do you think that hopefully will be maybe inspiring other nations as well? Because obviously India is a huge nation. It does have the capability for doing that. But maybe some of the smaller nations within the Commonwealth, do you think that inspires maybe other people to get involved with the games, Phil?
I think it's not only about the inspiration that sustainability offers. It's fundamental to the future existence of the event. If we cannot, as a society and as an industry, figure out more environmentally sustainable ways to put on major events, then we'll be continuing to damage the planet. And I think what we've tried to demonstrate in Glasgow is you have to make it one of your top 4 priorities. So we set out some really clear impact drivers for this project, and a Greener Games was one of those. And that's meant it's been front and centre to the decision making. It's been designed into the event, from using existing facilities to the electrification of transport to the reduction of food waste, the real consideration of how carbon is utilised throughout the whole footprint of the games, using existing accommodation infrastructure. All of those things in aggregate make these a greener games, but they don't happen organically. They happen because you're intentional, because you're purposeful, and that's what particularly working with the Bull team as part of Trivandi has allowed us to do. It's allowed us to champion sustainability, not as one team in an organising company, but as every single person, every single function's job right across the game.
Yeah, every decision has got that in mind, which is vital. And obviously Trivandi work across a lot of different events across the globe. Is that something you're seeing more and more of? Should we continue to be pushing that? I mean, the answer I think has got to be yes, you should be pushing, but are there more events with a greater awareness of sustainability at the heart of the decisions they make?
Absolutely, sustainability is always there on the top of the agenda for all of these major events. Not many of them actually deliver it very well, to be fair. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that what we've been fortunate here is that we've had unconventional thinking in terms of how things have been achieved. So given the situation that we, with the Commonwealth Games movement, found themselves in needing to find a host and so on, it meant that the conventional way of doing things could be thrown up in the air and re-discussed and re-thought through, and new ideas and new ways of doing things were actually brought to the fore in a really significant way compared to the sort of step-by-step way that things are happening across major events. So, for example, having the athletes in hotels was a huge success, because you didn't have an athlete village that you had to build this huge piece of infrastructure and new homes and so on to house the athletes, and then they would stay within their athlete village and you wouldn't see them around the city like we did here in Glasgow. Same with the transport systems, with doing I think this is the first time where we saw such a large electrical vehicle fleet as part of the transport. And of course, normally you have these huge limos to drive and chauffeur around all the top dignitaries and so on. It's great to see a right-sized transport fleet system. And when you again look at the venues, what venues can you reuse, and how can we be creative around that? Sometimes the seating capacities need to be extended, but there are creative ways to do that. So yeah, right sizing it into the city is really important. Of course, some cities will have big build programs, which is right if it's fitting within the city plan to develop their cities. But right sizing it is really important as a first step towards sustainability, because that brings down the cost and efficiency. Yeah, hopefully that is something that other people adopt for sure. In terms of those challenges that we've spoken about quite extensively over the podcast as well, but do you think it's a good thing? Because I think initially, obviously, a bit of a disaster, Australia pull out, and then Glasgow go, right, okay, we're going to take it on, and that challenge is set. Is it actually, looking back, quite a good thing that happened, because it has challenged how big events take place?
I think without this permission to change, we wouldn't have seen the radical reinvention that's happened here in Glasgow. There is no greater opportunity than having the ability to say to people, if we do not rethink this event, it will not be here.
Yeah.
And therefore what that's given us is the agency and autonomy to do things we probably would have done for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 editions of this games.
Yeah.
But that permission to change has given the license to evolve, that's allowed us the creative freedom. And that then as a business has allowed us to bring in experts, but also people who've never done it before, people who are looking at the challenge head on and going, this is how I'd approach it. And those voices have held equal footing in our organisation, in our partnership, as those who've done 10 Commonwealth Games. And I think that's what's made this so transformational for the movement. And, to do it in an environment where everybody just, is gritty and brave and courageous and had the spirit and the tenacity to make it happen. That they're the ingredients for success.
Yeah. Would you say the challenge is a good thing? I mean, it's quite good to mix things up, right?
Absolutely. Look, I take my original learnings out of London 2012, and back then it was unthinkable that we could even consider moving an event out of the Olympic Park and putting it in an existing venue somewhere in the north of England, for example. Now the opportunities are to not only just put it in different parts of the country in which it's being hosted, but also in a neighbouring country. So those sort of discussions are now starting to be had. And I think we need to be brave. I think everybody needs to be able to challenge the norm and come up with something quite radical here, because the cost of these games often run into the billions. Here we've shown that it can be delivered for 165 million. I mean, it's just
pocket money in comparison.
It's just, I mean, I think you made the comment the other day. It's not 20%, 30% less in terms of actually the quality of what's delivered. It's just reshaping it.
And I think that has been really important to really think about what you need to say to people to get them to believe that this is the right way forward. Because, on the one hand, nobody's asking for a more expensive Olympics.
No.
On the other hand, everybody will talk about a scaled back Commonwealth Games. Well, scale back, we've just proved scale back is a great thing because it's not scaled back. It's resized and reformatted. And, those athletes, the amount of Commonwealth records, world records that were broken.
Oh, it's
they
unbelievable.
weren't coming here thinking, I'll do a little bit less this time, because it's a different kind of Commonwealth Games. They were going for gold, and we've gone for gold, and that's what's been achieved.
Do you think they missed nothing then from your traditional model? Do you think there was anything missing? Do you think, it would have been great if we could have had that? Or are you happy with exactly what we got?
No, I think there is plenty of things that you would evolve and do differently next time, particularly with the athlete experience. I think, this was a really big shift from a village. And I think what we found is for some of the larger nations, they still had enough team members in which of the 3 zones they're in to really kind of feel like they were part of a team. For some of the smaller nations, actually, who'd maybe only sent a team of 9 or a team of 10, and they had some of their athletics athletes in one zone, and they maybe had some of their bowls athletes in another. I think that's one of the things we've got to look out is, this is multi-sport for multi-nations, and therefore how you create that opportunity to see different sports, to meet different athletes, particularly when there isn't equality in the world of sport internationally. So the ability to learn from each other, advocate for each other, share resources, share, I guess, just the spirit of the Commonwealth, that's really important. So I think that's something that we need to keep pushing at. It's not just this model worked. This model was a step in the right direction. Yeah,
it was a great success, but there's also things you can improve on. And I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. The same for you, James. You're kind of happy. You don't think it missed anything from maybe previous games?
I think that it was great that the athletes were in the hotels because it felt like the games were in the city because the athletes were walking around the city, the tracksuits of their countries on the back, and it created vibrancy in the city. But I think also, if we had more time, I think the city could have activated more. I think there could have been more opportunities with longer-term partnership, sponsorship deals where they would also activate across the city. So I think maybe we could have done more in relation to that. But in terms of actually sizing it, getting it right into the existing venues with the teams that we had and the sports that we had agreed to deliver, all of that I think worked incredibly well.
No, I would agree. I also walked past the Jamaican netball team and I've never felt so small. And I'm 6 foot tall and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's just brilliant to see everyone out and about and enjoying the city. I think we've probably covered it in a lot of depth, and I am very aware that you must be both exhausted after 11 days of competition and hopefully some celebrations last night as well for the closing ceremony. I want to kind of finish though on what do you hope people have taken from this Games then? What do you hope is the kind of lasting memory? Say in 10 years' time they're looking back and thinking, the 2026 Games, what is that overriding memory?
I would like them to take away from this Games that this was a city that put its heart out there to the Commonwealth, and it showed itself with all its vulnerability and all its openness and all its generosity, and that what came out of that was a gift that it's given back. So in 10 years' time, when it is Team Scotland and there's an amazing Glasgow athlete going to compete at 2034, 2038, that people remember that maybe for that athlete, it was seeing another nation's athlete compete here in a moment in these games that inspired them to go on that pathway and that journey forward, and that we can always hold these games with a special place in the history of the movement as a games that was truly game-changing for Commonwealth sport, but also for the city of Glasgow and the Commonwealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite an incredible legacy that is, to make sure that you're inspiring the next generation. That's kind of what it's all about, isn't it?
We're sat here the day after the closing ceremony, and what was the International Swimming Centre for these games is reopening to families today for 5, 6 and 7-year-olds to go back to swimming lessons. That
bonkers,
is the power of the
yeah,
major event. That was Duncan Scott winning gold for Scotland there on the first day of the games, and now it's the local swimming club are back in the pool today, enjoying that amazing community facility. That's pretty special.
Yeah, you now got a mini Duncan Scott trying to beat Duncan Scott's
Exactly,
records.
going for those Commonwealth records of the future.
Listen, you never know. And what about you, James? What do you think is hopefully the overriding memory for most people?
Well, I think Phil's put it perfectly, but just if I can add in terms of the workforce that was here, inspiring again that next generation of event professionals. So my two sons were working on the games, one in protocol, one in venue operations, and that's one of their first journeys in the world of events, and they absolutely love it, and now they want that to be their career too. Paul May, who's our co-founder and my business partner in Trivandi, his two daughters were here volunteering as well. They're 16 and 19, so they're really getting their first taste of what it is to actually operate an event. And I think, look, being in amongst a multi-sport event like this, where it's all sorts of different events taking place, all the sorts of different athletes from all these different nations, in amongst some inspiring volunteers, to start there in your formative years in your career and have that sort of experience is really inspiring. And it's may not be event world that they end up in, but they've been exposed to logistics, to catering, to hospitality, to security, to transport, to all of those things that it takes to pull an event together, which is a very exciting opportunity for them, but really inspiring for them to then potentially be event professionals of the future.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think what we've covered here ultimately is that there are obviously logistical legacy moments and what we've learned from it and the training and everything, but ultimately the legacy you want is inspiration and emotion and that kind of pride in the city. And I think you've created that beautifully. Congratulations, gentlemen, to you and your team, because I think everyone's done such a great job. And as a viewer, as someone who was there, I'm passionate about the sport and the city, and I'm very proud of what you achieved. So thank you for that. It was really incredible. And go and lie down in a darkened room and sleep for about a week. I think you need that. Thank you so much for joining us to have a chat, to debrief on Glasgow 2026. It's been an incredible celebration, and you should be very, very proud. And thank you so much for joining us on Behind the Games.